In the glittering steel and glass canyons of downtown Miami, Ashford Capital wasn't just a firm. It was a multi-billion-dollar kingdom. And every kingdom has its king. His name was Damien Ashford, the multimillionaire CEO, a man carved from ambition and tailored in bespoke suits, with a smile that could disarm nations and a gaze that could bankrupt them. 6'3", with skin the color of aged mahogany and a voice that could make grown men question their convictions. He was the sun at the center of his universe, and everyone in his orbit either reflected his light or was burned by it. But this story isn't about the king. It's about the girl who came to dethrone him. Her name was Zara Washington, 24 years old, fresh out of business school with honors she never mentioned and a hunger she kept hidden. To the bustling world of Ashford Capital, she was just another intern, a ghost in the machine, fetching coffee, making copies, her brilliance tucked away behind a polite, unassuming smile. She was sharp, observant, and utterly invisible, the perfect camouflage for a predator. Her first day, she was warned about Damien by the only person who seemed to see her as more than a temporary fixture, Elias Vance. A junior VP with kind eyes, a conscience that was becoming a liability in a place like this, and a smile that was genuine in a building full of masks. He pulled her aside in the break room, his voice low and confidential. Just some friendly advice. Stay off Damien Ashford's radar. He's a shark. He'll chew you up and spit you out before you even know you're bleeding. I've seen it happen to 3 interns in the last 2 years. Smart girls. Ambitious. He uses them up and throws them away. Zara just nodded, her expression a perfect mask of gratitude and naivety. Thank you. I'll be careful. I'm just here to learn. But she wasn't there to learn. She was there to hunt, because Damien Ashford had done more than just build an empire. Years ago, he had destroyed one. A small, honest tech firm run by a man named Marcus Washington. Her father, a brilliant engineer who believed in fair business and ethical practices. Damien had orchestrated a hostile takeover, spread lies about the company's financial stability, and bought it for pennies on the dollar. A corporate crucifixion that had left her father with nothing but a mountain of debt and a broken heart that eventually gave out. Zara was 16 when she watched her father die in that hospital bed, his last words a whisper of regret that he couldn't protect his family. Damien didn't even remember his name, but Zara did, and she was here to collect a debt that was long overdue. Her plan began with a simple, calculated move. During a high-level strategy meeting where she was meant to be a silent note-taker, she accidentally spilled a coffee on the lap of a visiting investor, just as he was about to sign a disastrous deal Damien was pushing. In the ensuing chaos, she handed Damien a folder. Inside, under the guise of updated reports, was a single, flawlessly analyzed page detailing a fatal flaw in the deal he'd missed, a flaw that would have cost the company millions. She saved him, and in doing so, she stepped directly into the shark's line of sight. That evening, he called her to his office. The city lights twinkled behind him like a carpet of fallen stars. He wasn't smiling. He was watching her, his eyes dark and intense, the way a collector examines a rare gem. Zara Washington, the intern. You have my attention. Tell me, how did you see what my entire team of analysts missed? She met his gaze, calm and steady. I just read the fine print, Mr. Ashford. Sometimes the biggest risks are hidden in the smallest details. A slow, dangerous smile spread across Damien's face. It wasn't the smile of a mentor. It was the smile of a predator who had just found a new, fascinating prey. He saw her ambition, her fire, but he mistook it for a reflection of his own. He thought he could mold it, control it, own it. You're wasted making copies. From now on, you report to me, directly. And just like that, the lamb was invited into the lion's den, or so the lion thought. The truth was, the hunter had just been welcomed into the lair of her unsuspecting target. The weeks that followed were a blur of dizzying highs and toxic lows. Damien's mentorship was a seduction. It started with late nights in the office, his hand brushing hers as they leaned over financial projections. The way he'd stand just a little too close, his cologne expensive and intoxicating, the way he'd compliment her mind, then let his eyes linger on her body. It moved to lavish dinners at impossible-to-book restaurants, where he'd dismiss his wife's calls with a casual wave of his hand and a comment that made Zara's skin crawl. Victoria understands. She has her life. I have mine. That's how successful marriages work. He was testing her, grooming her, pulling her into his corrupt world. He'd tell her stories of his conquests, both business and personal. With a pride that bordered on sociopathic, he'd brag about the companies he'd destroyed, the men he'd broken, the women he'd had. He thought he was impressing her. He didn't realize he was handing her ammunition. He saw her as a beautiful, intelligent toy. He didn't see the cold, hard fury simmering beneath her skin. He didn't see her saving every receipt, documenting every inappropriate conversation, and copying every secret file he so carelessly left open on his desktop when he stepped out to take a call. Their affair, when it finally happened, was a storm. It was lust and power, a collision of two calculated performances. In his $50 million penthouse suite overlooking the city, with champagne, chilling, and secrets hanging in the air, he thought he was conquering her. He whispered promises of a future, of a seat on the board, of a life she could only dream of, weekends on his yacht, trips on his private jet, a world of unimaginable luxury. You're special, Zara. Not like the others. You have a fire in you. With me, you could burn this whole city down. I could make you untouchable, powerful. You'd never have to answer to anyone again. And Zara played her part to perfection. She was the starstruck intern, overwhelmed by his power, addicted to his touch. She gasped at the right moments, whispered his name like a prayer, made him feel like the god he believed himself to be. But every time he kissed her, she tasted ash. Every time he held her, she felt the ghost of her father's hand on her shoulder. She was using his lust as a key, and it was unlocking every door she needed.
If you're enjoying this story, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next episode.
She found the first secret in his private study during one of their late-night encounters. A hidden ledger tucked behind a false panel, detailing off the book's payments to shell corporations in the Cayman Islands. Millions of dollars, laundered and hidden. She photographed every page with a camera pen she'd bought online. A few weeks later, during a romantic getaway to his cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains, she found the second treasure, a thumb drive containing the plans for Project Nightingale, a ruthless scheme to short a competitor's stock into oblivion using illegally obtained inside information. The kind of scheme that could land someone in federal prison for a decade. She copied it while he slept, his arm draped possessively over her waist, his breathing deep and satisfied. She stared at the ceiling, her heart pounding, and thought of her father. But the closer she got to the truth, the more dangerous the game became. Elias Vance, who had been watching her with a mixture of concern and admiration, pulled her aside in the break room one afternoon. His face was serious, his voice urgent. "Zara, what are you doing? I see the way he looks at you. I see the car that drops you off in the morning, the expensive clothes that suddenly appeared in your wardrobe. This won't end well. He destroys everything he touches. I don't want to see you become another casualty." Her voice trembled, a masterful performance. Tears welled in her eyes. I know. I think I'm in over my head. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I needed this opportunity. I needed to prove myself. And now I don't know how to get out." "Then let me help you. You can still walk away. I can talk to HR. We can figure this out. You don't have to do this alone." She looked into his honest, caring eyes and felt a pang of something real, something she hadn't felt in years. A life with Elias would be safe. It would be warm, It would be everything this world of lies and revenge was not. He was a good man, the kind of man her father had been. For a fleeting moment, she was tempted. But then she remembered her father's face, pale and defeated in that hospital bed, the machines beeping their final countdown. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face now. "You can't help me. It's too late. I'm in too deep." She walked away, leaving him standing there, his heart aching for the girl he thought was a victim, not a warrior sharpening her blade. The final piece of the puzzle came from the one person Zara never expected: Victoria Ashford, Damien's wife. Victoria was a woman made of ice and diamonds, a former model turned silent partner in her husband's kingdom. She had watched Zara with a cold, knowing amusement from the very beginning. One afternoon, Zara received a text from an unknown number. T. Street Regis, 4 p.m. Come alone. Zara knew who it was, and she knew this could be the end of everything. But she went anyway. Victoria was already seated when Zara arrived, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable. She stirred her tea slowly, not looking at Zara as she sat down. "He thinks you're different. He tells you that you're special. It's what he tells all of them. But you are different. You're not just sleeping with him for a promotion or a new car. You want something more. You want to see him burn." Zara's blood ran cold. Her cover was blown. "I don't know what you're talking about." Victoria looked up, her eyes like chips of ice. But there was something else there too. Respect. Maybe even admiration. "Oh, I think you do. And I'm going to help you. My husband has become a liability. His recklessness, his arrogance, his inability to keep his affairs discreet. It's threatening the empire my family's money helped build. My father invested $20 million in Damien when he was nobody. Now he's a multimillionaire with a private jet and a yacht, and he's forgotten where he came from. This company is as much mine as it is his, and I'm not going to let his ego destroy it. It's time for new leadership. When you strike, I want you to make sure you don't miss. He has a private server in his home office, behind a false wall in the bookcase on the left side. The password is the name of the only thing he's ever truly loved: Icarus, the name of his first boat. Fitting, don't you think? The boy who flew too close to the sun. Victoria slid a keycard across the table. Access to their penthouse. Then she slid a second item, a small flash drive. Everything I've collected over the years. Emails, recordings, bank statements. Consider it a wedding gift. Though I suspect you're not marrying him, you're burying him. Zara took the items, her hands steady. "Why are you doing this?" Victoria smiled, cold and sharp. "Because I'm tired of being married to a man who thinks he's untouchable. And because when this is over, I'll be named interim CEO. The board already knows about his indiscretions. They're just waiting for a reason to act. You're going to give them that reason. He's in London for the next 48 hours. Don't disappoint me." That night, Zara let herself into the silent, opulent $50 million penthouse. The air was thick with the scent of expensive cologne and betrayal. She found the bookcase, the false wall, and the server, Icarus. She typed the password, and the screen came to life. And there it was, the unencrypted, unadulterated proof of everything. Wire fraud, insider trading, embezzlement, bribery, a symphony of corporate felonies, all meticulously documented. She copied it all. Combined with Victoria's files and her own evidence, it was a mountain of proof that would bury Damien Ashford so deep he'd never see daylight again. The final nail for his coffin. The annual Shareholders Gala was the crown jewel of the Ashford Capital social calendar. It was a night of champagne, fake smiles, and self-congratulation. The ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton was filled with Miami's elite, politicians, investors, celebrities, everyone who was anyone. And at the center of it all, on the grand stage, stood Damien Ashford, a conquering king addressing his loyal subjects. He was at the height of his power, delivering a triumphant speech about a year of record profits and aggressive expansion. This company, this family we've built together, is unstoppable. We don't just compete, we dominate. We take what's ours. And this year, we took it all. The crowd erupted in applause. He paused for dramatic effect, a smug smile on his face, and gave a subtle, possessive wink to Zara, who stood in the wings. He thought she was there to adore him. He had no idea she was there to bury him. As he raised his glass for a toast, the massive screens behind him, which were supposed to be displaying a celebratory montage, flickered. And then they came to life. It wasn't a montage, it was a ledger, the hidden ledger, showing illegal payments. Then a document, the plan for Project Nightingale. Then bank statements from offshore accounts. The room fell silent. The air crackled with confusion and dawning horror. And then came the audio. A recording from Zara's phone, from one of their nights together. Damien's voice, arrogant and clear, bragging about his crimes. The SEC is a bunch of toothless old men. They'll never catch me. I'm 10 steps ahead of everyone. Always have been. I built this empire by taking what I wanted. I remember this one small-time fool, Marcus Washington, tried to fight my takeover, cried about ethics and fairness. I crushed him and bought his company for pennies on the dollar. He died broke and broken. That's how you win in this world. You don't play by the rules. You make them. And if someone gets in your way, you destroy them. No mercy. No regrets. On stage, the blood drained from Damien's face. He stared at the screens, then at the sea of shocked faces. Investors, board members, federal regulators who had been invited as honored guests. The press, cameras flashing, and finally, his eyes found Zara. She was standing at the back of the room now, her expression no longer that of a naive intern, but of an executioner watching the guillotine fall. In that moment, he finally saw her. Not the girl, the weapon. He saw the ghost of Marcus Washington in her eyes, the same determination, the same fire. And he understood. She wasn't a conquest. She was a reckoning. "You," he whispered, though the microphone caught it, broadcasting his shock to the entire room. "You're his daughter." Zara didn't respond. She didn't need to. The screens said everything. Chaos erupted. Investors began shouting questions. Board members huddled together, their faces pale. The press swarmed toward the stage, and then the ballroom doors opened. Federal agents, tipped off by an anonymous email sent just minutes before the gala began, entered with purpose. They had warrants, they had evidence, and they had their target. Damien Ashford, you're under arrest for wire fraud, insider trading, and conspiracy to commit securities fraud. As they led him away in handcuffs, his multi-million-dollar empire crumbling around him in real time, his life over, he passed Elias. Elias wasn't looking at Damien. He was looking at Zara, his face a mixture of shock, awe, and a little bit of fear. He finally understood her fire. He finally understood why she couldn't be saved. Because she was never the victim. She was the storm. Damien stopped, turning to look at Zara one last time. His voice was hoarse, broken. "You played me. From the very beginning. Everything was a lie." Zara stepped forward, her voice steady and cold. "No, not everything. My father's death was real. Your crimes were real. And this is justice." He was dragged away, and the ballroom descended into chaos. Victoria Ashford stood in the corner, a champagne flute in her hand, watching with quiet satisfaction. She caught Zara's eye across the room and raised her glass in a silent toast. The queen was dead. Long live the queen. Zara didn't stay to watch the fallout. She slipped out of the ballroom, melting back into the city night. She walked through the cool Miami air, the sounds of sirens and shouting fading behind her. She took out her phone and dialed a number. "It's done, Mom. The debt is paid." Her mother's voice was thick with tears. "Your father would be so proud of you, baby. So proud. Zara hung up, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness. It was a tear of release. The weight of a decade of anger and grief was finally gone. Her father was avenged.
If you're enjoying this story, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next episode.
Across the city, in a high-rise office, Victoria Ashford watched the news on a massive screen. Breaking news. CEO of Ashford Capital arrested on federal charges. Stock prices plummeting. Calls for emergency board meetings. She picked up her phone and made a call. It's done. Invoke the morality clause. I want the board convened by morning. By sunrise, Victoria Ashford was named interim CEO. The board had no choice. She was the largest shareholder, the most competent leader, and the only one who could salvage the company's reputation. Damien's name was stripped from the building. His legacy erased. 3 months later, Zara sat in a small cafe in Brooklyn, far from the glittering towers of Miami. She had left the corporate world behind. She didn't need it. She had never wanted power or money. She had only wanted justice, and she had gotten it. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She opened it. I understand now. I hope you found what you were looking for. If you ever need anything, you know where to find me. E. Elias, the good man who had tried to save her. She smiled softly and typed a reply. I did. Thank you for seeing me. Take care of yourself. She deleted the message thread and finished her coffee. Zara Washington had come to Miami as a ghost, seeking vengeance. She had played the game, learned the rules, and then burned the whole board down. She didn't take the throne. She didn't want it. She had only come for one thing: justice. And in a world of sharks and kings, the quiet intern, armed with a secret and a promise, had proven that the most dangerous predator is the one you never see coming. Damien Ashford was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison. No parole. His assets were seized. His reputation destroyed. Ashford Capital was restructured under Victoria's leadership, and the company survived, though its reputation never fully recovered. She ran it with an iron fist and a clear conscience, turning it into one of the most ethical firms in the industry, a final insult to her ex-husband's legacy. Elias Vance was promoted to senior VP and became known as one of the few ethical voices in the cutthroat world of corporate finance. He never married. Some say he never got over the girl who was a hurricane disguised as a breeze. And Zara? She disappeared. Some say she went back to school. Others say she started her own consulting firm, helping small businesses fight back against corporate predators. No one knows for sure. But every now and then, in boardrooms across the country, when a powerful CEO falls from grace in spectacular fashion, when hidden crimes are suddenly exposed, when justice comes out of nowhere, people whisper the same question. Was it her? And somewhere, in a quiet cafe or a library or a park bench, Zara Washington smiles. Because she knows the truth. The game is never over. There are always more debts to collect. Always more kings who need to fall. And she's just getting started. The days following the gala were a whirlwind of headlines in corporate chaos. Ashford Capital in freefall. Damien Ashford denied bail. The intern who toppled an empire. The world was hungry for every salacious detail, but Zara was already a ghost, having vanished from her apartment the night of the takedown, leaving behind nothing but an empty room and a legend. Meanwhile, Victoria Ashford moved with the precision of a seasoned predator. The morning after the gala, she convened an emergency board meeting. Dressed in a severe black power suit, her expression unreadable, she laid out her plan. It wasn't a request, it was a declaration. With Damien's reputation in ashes and the company's stock price plummeting, the board had no choice. They unanimously voted her in as interim CEO. Her first act was to clean house. She fired Damien's entire inner circle, the sycophants, the enablers, the ones who had turned a blind eye to his crimes. She promoted Elias Vance to Senior Vice President of Operations, not just for his competence, but for his conscience. She needed a man like him to help rebuild the company's soul. In their first meeting, she was blunt. "Elias, you were the only one who saw the rot in this company and wasn't afraid to speak up. I need that honesty. I need you to help me turn this ship around. No more backroom deals. No more illegal schemes. We're going to run this company by the book. Is that understood?" Elias, still reeling from the events of the gala, simply nodded. "Yes, Miss Ashford, you have my word." He had thought of Zara every day since she disappeared. He admired her courage, her brilliance, her righteous fury. He also feared her. He knew he would never see her again, but he also knew he would spend the rest of his life looking for her in every crowded room. 2 weeks after the takedown, Zara received a package at a private mailbox she had set up in a different state. Inside was a burner phone and a single message. "Call me." She knew who it was from. She took a deep breath and dialed the number. Victoria's voice was crisp and businesslike. "I trust you're well." "I am," Zara replied, her voice equally cool. "Good. I've wired $10 million to an offshore account in your name. A finder's fee, if you will, for services rendered. You'll find the account details in a separate package arriving tomorrow." Zara was silent for a moment. That wasn't part of the deal. "Consider it a necessary expense. You have powerful enemies now. Damien's friends. People who lost a lot of money when he went down. You'll need resources to stay a ghost. Use it to build a new life. A safe one. And Zara, don't ever contact me again." The line went dead. Zara stared at the phone, a strange mix of emotions swirling within her. She had never wanted money, but Victoria was right. She needed to disappear. And $10 million would make that a lot easier. The trial of Damien Ashford was the spectacle of the year. The media dubbed it the trial of the Takedown Titan. Every day, the courtroom was packed with reporters, investors, and the morbidly curious. The prosecution, armed with the mountain of evidence Zara had provided, laid out a devastating case. The hidden ledgers, the recordings of Damien's arrogant confessions, the detailed plans for Project Nightingale. It was an open and shut case. Damien, once so powerful and imposing, looked like a shadow of his former self. His expensive suits were replaced with a standard prison jumpsuit. His confident swagger was gone, replaced by a defeated slump. He sat at the defendant's table, his face a mask of disbelief, as his former colleagues and lovers took the stand to testify against him. The most damning testimony came from an unexpected source, a former secretary. A woman Damien had fired years ago for a minor infraction came forward with a diary she had kept during her time at the company. It detailed his cruelty, his arrogance, his constant abuse of power. It painted a picture of a man who believed he was above the law, above common decency, above everyone. Zara watched the trial from a small apartment in a foreign country, her hair cut short and dyed a different color. She watched as the jury delivered their verdict, guilty on all counts. She watched as the judge sentenced Damien Ashford to 25 years in a maximum security federal prison, with no possibility of parole. She watched as he was led away in chains, a broken man, his legacy reduced to a cautionary tale whispered in boardrooms and on Wall Street. She felt nothing. No joy, no triumph, just a quiet, hollow emptiness. The fire of revenge that had burned within her for so long had finally gone out, leaving behind a cold, barren landscape. She had won. She had avenged her father. But what now? She booked a flight back to the States under a false name. She drove to the small cemetery where her father was buried. She stood before his grave, the cool autumn wind rustling the leaves around her. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to cry. Not tears of anger or grief, but tears of release. She had carried the weight of his death for so long, it had become a part of her. Now it was finally gone. "I did it, Dad," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "I did it for you. I hope you can finally rest now." As she stood there, a sense of peace washed over her. The ghost of her father, which had haunted her for so long, was finally at rest, and for the first time, she felt free. 1 year later. A small, bustling cafe in Lisbon, Portugal. A woman with short, curly hair and a warm, genuine smile sat at a corner table, a laptop open in front of her. She was no longer Zara Washington, the ghost of vengeance. She was Maya, a freelance consultant who helped small, ethical businesses navigate the treacherous waters of the corporate world. She had used a fraction of Victoria's money to start her new life. The rest she had anonymously donated to a foundation that provided legal aid to victims of corporate fraud. She didn't need the money. She had something more valuable now: a purpose. Her phone buzzed, a news alert. A powerful tech CEO in Silicon Valley had been exposed for running a massive Ponzi scheme. His company was in ruins. He was facing federal charges. The article mentioned that the evidence had been anonymously leaked to the press by a source known only as the Ghost. Zara, or Maya, as she was now known, smiled. She closed her laptop, took a sip of her coffee, and looked out at the bustling Lisbon street. The game was never over. There were always more kings who needed to fall, always more debts to collect. But she was no longer driven by revenge. She was driven by a desire for justice, for fairness, for a world where the powerful couldn't crush the powerless without consequences. She was no longer a ghost of the past. She was a guardian of the future, a silent, unseen force for good in a world that desperately needed it. And as she walked out of the cafe and into the warm Lisbon sun, she knew one thing for sure: her work was far from over, and she wouldn't have it any other way.
Before you go, tap that like button, leave a comment to let us know what you think, and subscribe so you're always the first to hear our next story. Your support keeps these stories coming.